Welcome to the debate. Today we're looking at the Sporte Academy course on video editing for esports, and it raises a really fascinating, highly practical question for the industry's next generation. Basically, what is the actual proven developmental pathway for an aspiring esports video editor who wants to land a top-tier job? We are talking about going from a bedroom editor to working for elite organizations like Cloud9, 100 Thieves, or Team Liquid. And I tend to lean heavily toward the established realities of the industry here. I believe that long-term career longevity requires conforming to industry-standard ecosystems, and specifically, I mean Adobe Creative Cloud. Furthermore, I'll be arguing that success really demands investing in professional hardware, mastering strict technical metrics like audio loudness targets, and, well, building deep narrative-driven, long-form portfolios.
Yeah, and I look at this exact same landscape and I see an industry that absolutely thrives on disruption. I'll be arguing that agility is the true key to success here. I heavily champion the use of all-in-one, highly accessible platforms like DaVinci Resolve as the primary foundation. I firmly believe, and the source material actually backs this up, that workflow proficiency can completely bypass those expensive hardware limitations. And when it comes to getting noticed, prioritizing high-engagement, short-form content alongside really advanced visual techniques is by far the fastest, most effective way to build an audience and actually get those elite organizations to knock on your door.
Let's begin right at the foundation, which is the software, because if an editor's goal is to actually get hired and sit in a studio at an elite esports org, we have to look at the job boards. I mean, when 100 Thieves or Team Liquid post a job listing, Adobe Premiere Pro and After Effects aren't listed as optional preferences. They are mandatory core requirements. The reality of an enterprise environment is that you have to slot into a massive pre-existing pipeline.
Right, but is that pipeline actually the best place for a total beginner to start their developmental journey? I mean, really.
Is if they want to get paid. The reason Adobe Creative Cloud is the safest career choice is its profound ecosystem integration. You're never just cutting video. Premiere Pro integrates seamlessly with Photoshop for asset creation and Audition for detailed audio post-production. And here's the real kicker with this. Relying solely on in-editor graphics like Premiere's Essential Graphics or DaVinci's built-in tools, it's simply insufficient for elite studios. Dedicated After Effects mastery is indispensable. We're talking about those incredibly complex broadcast graphics, the animated lower thirds, the dynamic player cards you see on a major Twitch broadcast. After Effects is the absolute undisputed industry standard for motion graphics, and it's supported by this massive third-party plugin ecosystem that a standalone editor just cannot match.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. The landscape fundamentally shifted with the release of DaVinci Resolve 20. We are no longer talking about a basic alternative here. We're talking about a platform that integrated over 100 new AI-powered features. Things like IntelliScript for automated timeline creation and AI multicam smart switch. And when you bring up complex graphics and After Effects, we really need to talk about DaVinci's built-in Fusion page.
Which has a notoriously steep learning curve, by the way.
Well, it's a node-based compositing system, yes, which requires a different way of thinking than After Effects' layer-based system. But once it clicks, it absolutely rivals After Effects for high-end visual effects tasks. And the crucial part, it is completely integrated. You don't need to round trip between 3 different applications and manage dynamic links that might randomly break during a render. You just click a tab. Furthermore, the built-in text and graphic tools handle 95% of an esports editor's everyday needs perfectly well.
But again, you are stepping into studios that use Adobe.
Eventually, sure, maybe. But why should an aspiring 18-year-old editor trap themselves in a $276 a year subscription model just to learn the ropes when a free all-in-one powerhouse exists? DaVinci Resolve offers roughly 90% of its world-class features entirely for free. And if they do eventually want the premium AI features, Resolve Studio is a one-time purchase of $295. You buy it once, you own it forever. The value proposition for a developing professional trying to build their first reel is undeniably superior.
That's an interesting point, though. I would frame it very differently. That subscription cost isn't a trap. It is literally the price of admission to the industry standard. Avoiding it does a massive disservice to students who will be expected to open a Premiere project file handed to them by a senior producer on day one. But let's follow your thread about accessibility and move to the hardware required to run these programs, because whether you're using Premiere or Resolve, professional editing is intensely hardware dependent.
Only if your workflow is inefficient.
I heavily disagree with that. To handle high bitrate, 60 frames per second 4K gaming footage, and to actually properly leverage those AI features you just praised, an editor must invest heavily in professional specifications. We are looking at a minimum of an Intel i9 or Ryzen 9 processor, 64 gigabytes of RAM, and an RTX 4070 or better GPU just to handle hardware encoding without your system crashing every 20 minutes. You cannot compromise on your rig if you want to deliver broadcast quality files on tight deadlines.
But put yourself in the shoes of that beginner we're talking about. Demanding that a student drop $3,000 immediately on an RTX 4070 and 64 gigs of RAM is a massive, totally unnecessary barrier to entry. This is exactly where the curriculum really shines, because it teaches that workflow proficiency completely compensates for budget limitations initially.
You're talking about proxies. Exactly. By mastering the proxy workflow, which, for our listeners, means transcoding massive 4K video files into lightweight, low-resolution proxies for real-time playback while you edit, and then seamlessly swapping back to the original high-quality files for the final render, a budget laptop can punch far above its weight class. You combine proxy workflows with strict folder structures, standardized track organization, and universal keyboard shortcuts, and suddenly hardware ceases to be the bottleneck. You simply don't need an i9 processor to be an incredibly fast, efficient editor.
Proxy workflows are fantastic, yes. I use them, but they take time to generate. In a live tournament environment where you need a highlight reel posted to Twitter 5 minutes after the grand final ends, you don't have time to transcode proxies. You need raw horsepower. And parallel to that hardware requirement is the absolute need for rigorous technical precision. Let's talk about audio. The text gives us a golden rule. Bad audio kills videos faster than bad video.
Oh, no argument there. Viewers will forgive a pixelated prep, but if the audio peaks and blows out their headphones, they're gone instantly.
Exactly. And achieving precise industry-standard audio targets is a far more critical skill than implementing flashy creative polish. We're talking about hitting exactly -14 LUFS. For anyone listening who hasn't stared at an audio meter all day, LUFS is the industry-standard measurement for perceived loudness across platforms like YouTube. If you don't hit -14, YouTube will arbitrarily compress your audio and it will sound terrible. You also have to preserve -6 decibels to -3 decibels of absolute headroom so it doesn't clip.
The targets are vital, yes.
Right, but it's how you hit those targets. Relying on automated tools to manage this is incredibly dangerous in professional esports. You have screaming casters, massive crowd noise, in-game explosions, and heavy bass music all fighting for the exact same frequencies. Meticulous manual mixing and manual volume keyframing under the commentary ensures that the caster's voice, which needs to sit perfectly between -12 and -6 decibels, is never compromised by an automated algorithm misinterpreting a digital gunshot for a voice.
I come at it from a different way. I strongly dispute the absolute necessity of manual keyframing for everything. The workflow efficiency of using automatic audio ducking, whether you're using DaVinci's Fairlight page or Premiere's Essential Sound panel, is immense. For those unfamiliar, audio ducking automatically lowers the volume of your background music whenever a dialogue track, like a caster speaking, is detected. It takes 2 clicks and it saves literally hours of tedious manual volume keyframing across a 10-minute project. Yes, you might have to tweak a few moments manually, but as a baseline, it's revolutionary.
It's a shortcut that breeds laziness. If you rely on ducking, you're not learning how to actually EQ a track. You're not learning specific EQ targeting, like cutting frequencies below 80 Hz to eliminate desk bumps and mic rumble from a player's headset.
You can still apply a high-pass filter to cut those 80 Hz rumbles while using auto-ducking for your music bed. They aren't mutually exclusive. Furthermore, while those LUFS targets are important for normalization, let's be honest about what actually retains viewer attention and builds an editor's reputation. It's creative polish, It's the visual identity. Achieving that visceral, emotional impact relies heavily on cinematic color grading.
Color grading's nice, but it doesn't save a poorly paced video.
But it elevates a well-paced one into art. This is where DaVinci provides undeniably best-in-class color tools. In esports, you have to match the aesthetic of specific games. You're dealing with the gritty, desaturated, high-contrast look of Counter-Strike 2 one day, and the warm, vibrant, cinematic tones of Apex Legends the next. Applying a targeted lookup table, or LUT, at 60 to 80% opacity, and then dialing in your primary wheels, that creates the visual identity that viewers actually remember. Long after they've forgotten your perfectly preserved negative 3dB audio headroom, they remember how the video made them feel.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective on what creates true, lasting impact in an editor's career. While color grading is visually pleasing, the absolute most crucial, immediate utility for a beginner isn't coloring, it's mastering sync editing to music beats.
Syncing is important, certainly.
It is the absolute backbone of all professional esports montages. Using waveform visualization to place your cuts precisely on the bass drops and snare hits. It requires frame-perfect accuracy. Literally, a 2-frame offset can ruin the entire rhythm of a sequence. If you can't sync perfectly, you simply can't work in this industry, period.
I agree that it's foundational.
But looking at long-term career growth, we have to look past the montages. A portfolio filled entirely with highly stylized, short-form clips does not prove to a hiring manager that you are ready for a staff position. Mastering long-form tournament recaps is what builds true portfolio depth.
You're talking about the 10 to 20-minute documentary-style videos.
Exactly. It requires structuring complex narratives over a sustained period. You have to establish the stakes in the opening, track the underdog upsets through the group stages, build tension through the playoffs, and deliver that massive emotional release in the grand finals. It involves weaving together official broadcast VODs, player social media clips, in-game spectator replays and comms, capturing the human experience of competition. That sustained storytelling ability is exactly what organizations are paying $69,000 a year for. They need editors who can carry an audience through a cohesive narrative, not just give them a 10-second flash of kinetic typography.
That's a compelling argument. But have you considered the actual mechanisms of modern audience growth? You're talking about the end goal, the 69K staff job. I'm talking about how you get there from zero. Sync editing is foundational, yes, but it's also ubiquitous. Everyone can cut on a beat. The true signature of an elite montage editor today lies in the advanced implementation of visual effects, specifically the interplay of speed ramps and zoom effects.
Which often gets overused to the point of nausea, frankly.
If done poorly, sure, but the course text outlines the definitive speed ramp recipe for a reason. We've all seen those incredibly hyped montages where a player hits an insane flick shot. The recipe is start at normal speed for the setup, drop to 20 to 50% slow motion to build anticipation right before the shot, and then accelerate to 200 to 400% exactly on the point of impact, combined with a subtle punch zoom and screen shake. That creates a level of kinetic energy that basic cut-on-the-beat sync editing simply cannot touch. It's visceral.
It's a neat trick, but it's just one tool.
It's the tool that gets you noticed. And regarding portfolio strategy, we have to look at where the industry is actively moving. Focusing intensely on high-engagement short-form content, social media reels, YouTube shorts, TikToks, is a far superior strategy for rapid career growth. The modern audience consumes content vertically, period. Utilizing kinetic typography like pop-in text scaling with a bounce overshoot, shake effects for emphasis, and highly accurate auto captions from integrated tools drives incredible viewer retention.
But retention on TikTok doesn't equal broadcast readiness.
No, but getting tagged by professional teams and players on a viral social media clip gets an aspiring editor noticed exponentially faster than a meticulously crafted 10-minute VOD recap sitting undiscovered on an unlisted YouTube channel or a personal portfolio site that gets 10 hits a month. You have to play the attention game first.
I am just not convinced by that line of reasoning, because it heavily conflates social media vanity metrics with professional broadcast readiness. And I've seen this happen. An editor whose entire workflow is optimized for vertical, attention-deficit content often struggles immensely when handed a 2-hour recording of a grand final and asked to craft a cohesive, emotionally resonant story for a major sponsor.
They are different skill sets, definitely.
Completely different. The skills required for long-form, like advanced audio noise reduction, dealing with multiple camera angles, applying a 3-to-1 compression ratio to smooth out wildly fluctuating caster audio, and maintaining strict track organization across literally hundreds of assets, those muscles simply do not naturally develop when you are making 15-second vertical clips with meme sounds and auto-generated captions. The esports market is valued in the hundreds of billions of dollars. The elite broadcast organizations, the ones actually paying salaries with benefits, require a level of meticulousness that short form simply does not teach. A demo reel needs to show variety, certainly, but a professional portfolio must contain complete, finished, long-form edits that demonstrate the ability to execute a massive project from start to finish. Without that, you remain a hobbyist in the eyes of a hiring manager.
But you cannot get hired by that manager if no one knows you exist. I am not suggesting that an editor should only ever make 15-second clips for their entire career and call a day. But as a developmental pathway, prioritizing agility and visibility is paramount. Let's look at the actual career progression outlined in the curriculum. The journey from unpaid volunteer to professional staff requires aggressive networking within the community.
Networking, yes, but you need substance behind the network.
The short form is the substance that builds the network. Posting spec work publicly, tagging players, engaging on platforms like Twitter, where the entire esports industry basically lives. That is the modern resume. You build the brand first. Use tools like DaVinci Resolve because they remove the massive financial friction of starting out. You master proxy workflows because they allow you to edit that 60 frames per second 4K grand final footage on a standard college laptop. You master those speed ramps, impact effects like chromatic aberration, and dynamic text because they stop the scroll. Once you have the attention of a Cloud9 or a Team Liquid, then you can point them to your long-form timeline to close the deal. But demanding that a beginner start by adopting enterprise software costs, enterprise hardware requirements, and enterprise narrative structures is a recipe for creative burnout before they even land their first paid gig.
I believe we've thoroughly mapped the contours of this divide, and it really comes down to whether you prioritize immediate industry integration or agile grassroots growth. To summarize my position, true longevity and elite employability in the esports editing space require conforming to the realities of the industry as it exists at the highest levels. That means mastering the Adobe Creative Cloud ecosystem, particularly the quiche integration between Premiere Pro and After Effects. It means recognizing that professional results demand uncompromising hardware and strict adherence to technical standards like accurate LUFS targeting and precise manual audio mixing. Finally, while short-form content absolutely has its place in marketing, proving narrative depth through structured, long-form tournament recaps is the ultimate indicator of a professional ready for a top-tier staff position.
And to summarize my stance, the most effective modern blueprint for success is built entirely on agility and minimizing barriers to entry. By adopting an accessible but immensely powerful all-in-one platform like DaVinci Resolve, an editor gains world-class capabilities, including advanced fusion graphics and elite color grading, without crippling subscription fees. By leveraging intelligent workflows like proxies and automated audio ducking, one can bypass expensive hardware limitations. And by focusing on advanced visual techniques and high-impact short-form visual content, an aspiring editor can rapidly build the audience and industry visibility necessary to actually launch a sustainable career. Get their attention first, then prove your depth.
Despite our different perspectives on the optimal pathway, there is a point of undeniable convergence within the Sport Academy material. Whether you choose to invest deeply in the Adobe ecosystem or master DaVinci Resolve, whether you are meticulously manual keyframing on a 10-minute recap or designing dynamic text for a viral short, the text offers one universal truth. The difference between passionate amateurs and salaried professionals is 1,000 hours of practice. The software is ultimately just the instrument. It is the time spent actively cutting, enhancing, and polishing that builds true expertise.
Absolutely. Every professional editor, no matter where they work today, started with terrible first edits. The key is simply to begin. to save your project files constantly, and to continuously iterate on your craft. You just have to put in the reps.
Thank you for joining us on the debate. The Sport Academy course material holds even more detail on specific grading techniques, proxy workflow setups, and the exact visual effects recipes we discussed today for those looking to dive deeper into the world of esports editing. We leave the final conclusion to you, the listener, as you forge your own path in the industry.